Who has a 100-word summary of all the trouble you got into last week?
We didn't get in any trouble. That was we almost had trouble.
We almost had trouble.
We definitely navigated Vistani politics. Right?
Say definitely or deftly?
Deftly.
Definitely.
Oh, sure, why not?
So I suppose both are after. We definitely navigated. Definitely deftly. We found out that our guides had beef with had a baby beef with another group of Vistani, and they wanted us to murder them, and we didn't.
I mean, you could have.
And then
Everyone calls us
Yeah, but it
murderers,
would've-
but we didn't murder anybody.
Yeah, there were children involved, and that's just. You can't. I mean, this is Brick Road. He's a sadistic bastard, so he'll involve children all he wants.
Bro knows what buttons to push to make us go, nah.
My wife's a public school teacher. I've heard many stories about children who deserve to be murdered.
Mm,
You gotta at least wait till they're 18.
Oh, is that one is okay to murder children? 18-year-olds. Okay, good. I'm writing that down, Treble.
Treble, confirmed arbiter of justice.
I mean, I mean, 18-year-olds are not like fully formed people yet, but they're close enough, I guess.
They're close enough to murder? Is that your
They're
point?
not even people yet, huh? Is that how you're... Okay. Also, yeah, write that one down too, Dustin.
I said they're not fully formed people. That's why your insurance premiums are so high until you're 25.
you're not a person yet.
Yeah, you don't have the.
But if
the
you get
part-
married, you become a person?
Listen, we're all going to have a chance later to attend Treble's TED Talk on when it's okay to start murdering people. For now,
There you go. Yeah.
though, you have successfully negotiated a Vistani feud to make your way to this
We're making our way downtown.
thriving, ruined village.
I think when we left, Edmont was in the village invisible,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and the rest of us were either looking around with familiars or just kind of sitting with our thumbs up our butts.
Hanging back, waiting for me to bring back some word.
We had a couple of days of travel, right? Like I have all my spell charges back and stuff.
Yeah, go ahead and take the benefits of the long rests on the way here. That's appropriate. Edmont. Physical characteristics of the village. Maybe 3 or 4 dozen people total, as far as you can tell. Visibility, however, is bad because the whole time that you come in, there is a roiling blanket of mist stretching across the ground, pooling up in between the buildings and in the paths. And it's constantly being moved and shifted through as these red-robed people going about their tasks. Unfortunately, you can't see whether they're 18 or 25. You don't know if it's okay to murder them.
I'm gonna try to avoid the pockets of mist on bare grass. That way, I'm not shifting mist around in a very conspicuous place.
Basically impossible to move without doing so. Like I said last week, when you guys, especially living near to the lake in Brennany, there would be mornings where you just wake up and there's a cloud sitting across the banks of the lake and rolling up from the harbors. Watching the people at work, though, nobody seems to be paying you much mind. I mean, you're invisible, so if they did, that would definitely be alarming.
Definitely.
In addition to being invisible, though, you have all donned red robes that you've taken from previous cultists, yes?
Sure.
Is my
Yeah, I think we said we did that last
is my
time.
recollection correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Watching the people at work, a lot of these tasks seem to be just the kind of thing that you'd see any villagers doing. You see people retrieving water from a well towards the center of the square. You see people moving goods back and forth. Of note, though, none of the buildings or structures, they're all in a bad state of ruin, and none have been repaired. And there does not seem to be any work in that direction. You also see some people who seem to be working in the mists themselves with long wooden poles, moving the mists in swirls and kicking up fog up into your eye line. Give me a perception check.
Mind if I do? $22.
At first, you think that they're working the mist itself with long poles somehow, and you feel that lump in your throat, because I'm going to go out on a limb and speculate that Edmont, over the course of his several years in Darkon, has not created any positive association with these mists.
No.
However,
It's the place where we banish criminals.
what you actually see is along the ground, pretty much everywhere that's not a main thoroughfare that's being walked across, so not one of these paths, or the central area near to the well. What they're actually doing is they have these long poles with wooden slats on the bottom, like a push broom. And they seem to be dusting, moving dirt and dust underneath the mist. And now that you know what to look for, you can see it being pulled up along the outside walls where they still stand. Anywhere it's out of the way, so not to be stomped on. And you have the occasion, as two of these pushers come by, to dredge through the narrow walkway that you've been hiding in for the past few moments. They don't notice you. They go by and do their work, and as they disappear around the corner and the mists settle around, you see that they're not pushing dust or dirt, but ash.
I scoop up a handful of it,
Okay.
and then I'll spend about 45 minutes in total observing them and doing this, and then I'll return to the party and make my report.
Okay. The only other thing of note is that the whole place is fairly silent in terms of there's no chatter, no conversations. A lot of these people, for sure, avoid meeting your gaze because, again, you're invisible. They don't know where your eyeballs are. But it's definitely not a very chummy or friendly village.
Do I see the crystal tower in the vicinity?
You don't, but you don't have very great visibility beyond the village itself.
Okay.
You know that there's supposed to be a body of water near to here, a lake or a shoreline of some kind. You can't see it from here, though.
Yeah, I'll return to the party and make my report.
Okay.
I'll tell them everything I saw and show them the ash that they would seem to be shuffling around.
Is the ash magical?
No.
It's just normal ash.
Could be burned,
The ashes
burned
would be-
anything.
So they're literally just digging ashes up out of the ground?
Well, the ash had to have come from something that burned.
I feel like the ash was people that they were unhappy with.
Think so?
Well, the ash is coming from the mist, right? Is that what it looked like to you?
What do you think, Brickroad?
That's not my call.
So-
Did you see any stakes or anything where they may have been used for execution?
Didn't seem that way. Seemed like honestly, not very much in the way of civilization regardless. Like, you think that, even as many few people as here, they, rebuild, put a roof over their heads. At the very least. Keep
Maybe
the
they
rain
don't
off.
actually. Do they actually live in this area?
Is there
Did I
is
see?
yeah.
Yeah. Did I see? Did I see evidence of stuff like farmland or?
There were people tending to small, small gardens and things. As far as farmland, if there was a stretch of farmland to travel through to get to the village, you didn't see it on your way in.
No, I imagine it's just kind of self-sufficient in that, or
Do you think
self-reliant
that?
in that regard.
Do you think that what they were doing with the ash was some sort of ritual? We've already seen them summon one type of demon. Maybe they're trying to do another one.
Could be, but at the same time, maybe that's I have no idea. Maybe to clear up space for topsoil. I don't know.
I'm a little more concerned about the fact that their village is covered in mist. That's never a good sign.
could it just be normal fog off of the body of water? Like, to be fair, like, or question for Burkroad, have we seen normal fog? Is that a thing that happens?
It occurs to you that, especially spending the time that you did in Zaquiel's little village along Lake Rudolph, you cannot recall now a morning waking up in those places where there was normal fog rolling in off the shore, which is what you would expect. Conversely, you cannot remember any moment in Lake Rudolph where you looked out over the lake and did not see the mists roiling in the distance.
Mist is always bad here.
I think we should just go under the assumption that this is the supernatural mist. Like, let's take that into account with our plans, whatever we end up doing.
I agree, but it's always been something of a barrier. Like, you can't see beyond. You can't It's never really been like covering the ground like you would expect a lake like an ocean fog or a lake fog would be.
And you can get lost in it. You could step into the mist and wind up somewhere else.
At any point, were we able to see the crystal tower along the way? Like, when did we get overcome with mist, basically, I guess is my question.
Around the time that you became cognizant that you were coming up on the village is the time that you first started to notice mist building up. And it had gotten thicker the closer you got to the village. And by the time Edmont snuck in invisibly, there were places where it was just climbing up his shins and up to his knees. It was impossible to move around without kicking around.
Like, at this point, I think we have two options. One, we can continue to gather information in the village, and I think that's going to require us to basically get dressed up and then go up and be like, "Hello, fellow cultists."
So I do have an option.
You want to scry?
Not quite. I know we used to call this one Ruin the Adventure, but I would like to cast Find the Path, targeting the Crystal Tower and using the Acolyte's holy symbol that we confiscated after we killed her.
Okay. Let me pull up my spellbook cheat sheet here.
We are Destil ruining the adventure.
Yeah, it's ruined. Thanks.
I mean, that's literally what I've seen people online call this spell. That was in 3rd edition. It's not as potent as it used to be.
Very House Veritas spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ruby probably has this as one of her arcanas.
I don't know if she has
Yeah,
that.
you cast the spell,
Mm-hmm.
and
Nigel does.
make me a religion check.
You got it.
Because the spell doesn't manifest in a way that anybody else can see, right?
No.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it doesn't show up as like large neon arrows like in a Grand Theft Auto game. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
13 on religion.
Okay. But it
I'll take
ruins
a
that game too, let's
Plus
be honest.
5.
Okay, so apparently that's a 18 on religion because we're not allowed to fail things anymore.
Ekon.
Yes.
you get a very compelling sensation that the spell failed.
Okay.
I don't know what that feels like when a spellcaster's spell failed, but however, I mean, you can rationalize that however you want. But however, in the next few moments, it becomes pretty apparent that your sense of vision, what you can see happening, and that of your companions has diverged somewhat. Because while the spell, you have a sensation that the spell didn't work, nonetheless, when you look down the path that Edmont just came back up from the village, you see the mists parting. Just wide enough, a foot or two maybe, to be a footpath for a person. And you see this split continue all the way down into the village where Edmont's had just gone to do some scouting.
Okay, so that spell has an unusual and unique interaction with the mist. Because normally you can't find your way through the mist.
I got the sense that the spell failed, which wouldn't surprise me, given that Kristoff probably has some pretty decent access to wards of air. But I also, this is just my. You guys don't see this path, right? This is the spell.
What path?
What path?
And Ekon kind of gestures. You know, there's just a path through the mist.
Victor
Brother,
gets down
I
and
just
sees
see
it.
mist.
Tries to find it.
Alright. I guess
Ekon.
hello, fellow cultist it is.
Well, hang on.
Your gut
Just
tells
You
you.
can try following the path and see if it's like it might be a trap.
Your gut tells you that Kristen, who you must assume is as practiced in miracles as you are, at least, has some sorts of defenses up.
Right. So whether this
Your spell
his
failed.
defenses couldn't entirely stop the spell, or whether his defenses include misleading me into thinking we should go someplace dangerous as part of the spell, I can't tell you, but I think those are the two options.
You think what's happening is the mists are showing you what your spell cannot.
That's distressing.
Why don't we just go wander to the village as lost travelers and see what happens?
That seems like a bad idea. You don't necessarily want to alert these people that there's strangers here.
Well,
Start
isn't
asking
it
questions.
Is it any worse than Hello Fellow Occultist and being clearly not one of them?
I mean, again, I think we could try and just follow this path. Or I could follow the path and you could follow me.
I think
Terrible idea.
what we can do is we can we put the robes on, we follow the paths. Like all of us are like listen, we were born with like worshiping air. We probably know more doctrine than these guys do, so it'll be fine.
Well, we know our doctrine. We don't know
Yeah, their
Kristen's
doctrine
doctrine.
is.
I mean, Ekon can give you a quick, like, 5-minute seminar on the heresies of the fire cultists of air.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in that because do they
And
like
I've
believe
spent a lot of time talking to these cultists over the years.
Ekon, give me a religion check.
Like, I talked to the one we had captured for a while. I talked to Kristen and some of his agents a bunch of times when they first got him. So that's another 13.
18.
And it's another 18 because we're not allowed to fail things anymore.
So, Ekon, you think you can give these guys a primer in some of the more heretical cults? Ekon worked as an inquisitor for a time, so anybody in your party who speaks Old Aetherine, with a little bit of tutelage from you, would be able to pass basic level scrutiny. Any of them who does not speak Old Aetherine will have to pass an intelligence check in order to do it.
Yeah.
Victor does speak Old Aetherine as it
Yeah,
happens.
so does
I'm also going to burn a spell slot to give myself borrowed knowledge and deception right before we head down there.
Okay.
I have a, regarding the Candid of Fire, I'm a little curious where their doctrine diverges. Like, do they believe that the tenets of
No,
The
the tenets are
Aetherine
essentially the same. They interpret them differently.
Okay, so they
The scripture
believe
is actually very lightly modified, though what they consider canon and not is considerably different. But the core tenets are all there. It's just, you know, I would go out of my way to not resolve a dispute between two people who claim to have both burnt down a grove of olives by burning both of them. The cultists would absolutely burn both of them and all of their families, and maybe everyone who's ever grown an olive.
Okay. So they believe the same tenets, but they believe that the current incarnation of the Aetherine Church was not fulfilling its duties and needed to be destroyed.
I could give you a short lecture on the canonization of knowledge, but I think we don't have time for that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if we're gonna talk to Kristen, which Evie still thinks we are, I don't know what you guys think, but I would like to know where his differences with our version of the faith actually are centered.
My feeling from the version the cultist we've interacted with is essentially generally they are Hellfire Baptists. So like yes, it is still the same religion technically, but you're a sinner and you deserve to burn, essentially. Like it's not like they believe the same things, but like they think that the church is not doing enough to punish people who are not holding up the highest level of belief.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the tenets you'll be fine if you just quote tenets, but as soon as you start getting into actual canonical or non-canonical scriptures and writings of saints, and that's when you're going to run into all kinds of divergence.
Just pretend to be mute; it'll be fine.
The other thing that I am reminded of, that this situation is piquing my interest. You guys remember when we talked to Von Richten, and he asked, like, did mist ever cover our town? Which it never did, as far as I'm aware. But he seemed to think that if that happened, it would be caused by something that we did, as though the mists react to what the rulers of the land are doing.
Do you think that this is what's happening to Kristen?
If Kristen is into some dark shit, and that may be drawing the mist to him, whereas in our land, Evie's in charge, and she does not like to do evil things, so we have mostly avoided that.
Had she told us about seeing the mists come out of Aslan's?
Yeah, I could mention that. I think I was the only one who saw that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was speaking out of character there.
Yeah. Aslan's carriage was also spewing mist everywhere, but I think I was the only one who saw it.
Maybe it is having something to do with like being set in charge of a particular plot of land. There's a lot of things about this place we don't understand.
And it's like fairy tales work that way. Like a kingdom becomes, if the king is happy and healthy, then the kingdom flourishes. If the king is in a rage, I mean, that's the way Darkon seems to work. When Aslan Rex is in a bad mood, it affects everybody.
Do you think it could be an extension of Aslan? Do you think the state of the mist here is because this place has Aslan's attention? Like
that could be, or it could be that Kristen is doing bad things that are drawing the mist. I mean, he's into some dark shit right now. He's got suicide bombers. He's summoning demons. We've never met anyone in this awful, awful place who's doing things as bad as what he's doing.
It's a terrible idea.
I'm pretty sure we've met people who are doing things just as bad, if not worse, but he's definitely up there.
We literally met.
We met cannibals.
We met Morden.
Okay, well, that was a different realm with different roles. Ludendorff was also a hellhole, but in a very different way.
Well, like, the reason I suggested that is because obviously the king is aware of Kristen's existence.
Mm-hmm.
Because he told Ekon to come murder him. Or submit, or whatever he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
So resolve it one way or the other. Either we become worshipful of fire cult or subdue him.
I'm assuming, brother, that you have no intention of bending the knee. At least I would hope.
No, don't be silly.
I would still like a commune at some point, so we could determine, did Aslan give Kristen the same order? Because I do suspect that's what happened.
I don't know how that changes my actions.
Indeed. Kristen is a dangerous man.
So the big question here we got to figure out is if Kristen is one of the stars of destiny, and if we kill him here, does that prevent us from reviving Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the little kid's name that died.
Giannis.
Giannis. If
Giannis.
that like if that prevents us from reviving Giannis in the climax.
God, I wish Giannis was still alive. He would be so much better at all this shit than you guys are.
Wow.
Really?
I don't say that in character.
Oh,
Yes, the 10-year-old boy would be better.
He was a go-getter. He had a good attitude. You guys want to sell women to werewolves.
That's just Victor.
Werewolves need women too.
Point proven right there.
Okay,
Anyway,
He
like,
did
you
have
mentioned,
advantage on
how long
saving
does
throws
this-
against being frightened.
how long does this, brother? How long does this spell of yours last?
The whole day. 24 hours.
I think we just put hoods on.
So the question is, how long does Find the Path lasts?
Yeah.
Find the Path lasts
1 day.
up to a day, as long as you're concentrating on it. But as I said, the spell failed. You're not concentrating on it.
Okay.
Nonetheless, the mists have parted before you.
So
Alright.
my
I think-
understanding. Go ahead.
I think my brother should lead the way then.
Yeah.
So, wait, so just so we're clear, so Ekon knows the spell failed. He still sees a path, and he's not suspicious.
No, I told you. I think that there's exactly two options here. Either Chrism is warded in such a way that prevented the spell entirely, and some other power is guiding us there, or Chrism warded himself in such a way that I think that the spell failed, or it's like it's leading us into a trap. Like, I'm not. I don't
know
think
that
we're not going into a trap.
Kristen didn't strike me as the mastermind. I know that you know that I know that you know that I know kind of planner.
No, he was a very one-track mind kind of guy. He
So-
sees problems and then he burns them.
Mm-hmm.
He's more of a suicide bomber kind of problem solver.
Right.
Now, guys, here's what Evie's approach is. I don't want a repeat of the Squelcher Lord scenario. I don't want us to just come in here and murder everyone.
That wasn't our plan.
Oh, I kind of do.
Yeah, see, some of this are having a disagreement on whether that's the plan or not.
Like,
Again, are we returning to the realm of, is the Duchess making a decree?
If I make a decree, would it matter? Would you guys listen?
if they're trying to murder us, no.
You could. I'm not saying we don't defend ourselves. I didn't hear that.
They're already trying to murder us.
Agreed.
That ship
They've
is
already-
sailed.
They have already cast their lot.
These are people who have obviously been lied to. These people, these rogues,
So-
they weren't born this way.
So like I don't think we're going to walk into the village and start murdering people. That's not what anybody's like proposing. Like there's a difference between commoners, like the peasantry that is following the religion. There's a difference in their, how should I say, fortitude and dedication to the religion that I have noticed. That leads me to believe that we really just need to avoid them and go straight for Kristen. And
Here's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that for humans, we go non-lethal. Monsters are fair game, but humans, we should not just go around murdering.
well,
Or
then,
humanoids.
I guess that I'm just going to just stand back and not do anything because, like, Jeannie starts looking through her pack. She's like, "All I've got. This is lethal, 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 very lethal, super lethal. Oh my God, this would cause so many people to die. Yeah, no, I got nothing non-lethal, sis. Like, I came
not-
to blow up a
I'm
crystal
not
tower.
here to slaughter the small folk, but we have to stop this now. I didn't quite have the stomach for this kind of inquisitional work back when we were in home, but I think this land has taught me that sometimes it might be necessary.
I mean, I'm not saying we didn't come here to resolve the attacks on our people. We are here to do that. I just want to make sure that we're not just coming in here and killing without knowing the whole story.
My goal is to go directly to the Crystal Tower and call down there's fire on everyone inside it. At least everyone who's,
Okay, that's exactly what I'm saying don't do.
Why? Like, explain your reasoning. Like, the thing is like, yeah, like, I think your reasoning to me sounds like you're thinking that
Edmont,
Chrism is.
you're the first to hear it. You hear what sounds like a pull cart coming up the road behind you,
From the
Heading
direction
down.
of the village.
heading down in the direction of the village.
Edmont draws his whip and points to take
No.
cover, everyone.
You be
I mean,
hot
we're-
there. I'll have to
we're all
go.
Pass without trace on everybody.
What? Victor looks around.
If you're under the effects of pass without trace, you can move through the mist without parting the mists.
Yeah, I'm gonna cast pass without trace on everybody and say, get clear.
I imagine that looks much like an N64 game with no water effects.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So was pass without trace +5?
10.
+10. So that's a 7 with disadvantage.
You didn't ask us to roll anything.
I'm stealth. I mean, I'm sorry. I was about to
Yeah.
announce I'm hiding. So my stealth check is a 18.
Hiding off the road is very is not at all difficult because you can kind of just hunker down behind a bush and let most of the mist do the rest. If everybody would like to make that hide check,
Yeah, that's a.
24.
I feel like if anybody fails this, that we just pack up and leave, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a 17.
okay.
I need to look up what my stealth is.
Doing a hide check.
I got a
20.
22.
20 if I need to, I'll use the psionic die.
So the lowest is a 17?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. As you guys are bickering, Edmont calls it to a halt, ushers everybody off the road. You guys hunker down, and after a moment or two, this pull cart comes up the road. Instead of being pulled by a beast of burden, you see it's being pulled by 4 red-robed people laboring under the weight of it. A 5th man rides atop the cart. It's covered in a cloth. Just nondescript lumps in the back as the wheels creak and rattle down the road. And the whole time, the man on top of the cart is speaking in Old Aetherine. Extremely bad Old Aetherine. Like,
Two questions.
okay.
Who's he speaking to?
Looks like he's just speaking to the 4 guys pulling the cart.
Okay. Would it be possible to sneak up behind the cart and look under the cloth without getting detected?
I was going to.
Yeah,
send
with a
my-
separate hide check.
You could do that, but like I was going to. Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
Victor's gonna be Victor.
Okay.
I was.
As Victor sneaks out, and he's not causing any disruption in the mist as long as he's got the what's the spell? Pass without trace.
Yeah. It's like a 32.
The man speaking, he's essentially giving a pared down version of a sermon. He's preaching fire and brimstone kind of stuff in a language that he barely speaks and that you're sure none of the people pulling the cart actually understand. And then you see Victor step out behind the cart, sneaking up behind it. It's not moving particularly fast because it's being pulled by 4 overworked laborers instead of, say, an ox. Victor, you sneak up behind it, get your hand under the cloth, pull it up. Looking inside, give me a perception check.
I'm waiting for the horror check.
That's a. Use a psionic die. It's a 30. It's a 20 without. Is it 20 good enough?
Yeah, 20's fine. And looking under, you don't have a lot of light at the moment, and visibility is pretty low. But looking under, letting your eyes adjust for a second, looks like stacks of furniture. Tables, chairs having been stacked up. Sacks and barrels, one corner. Could be any number of provisions. However, as I recall, go ahead and give me an Arcana check if you're trained.
I am. If the Arcana, it's 15's not good enough, it'll be a 23.
Okay, a 15's fine.
Okay.
You can detect some sort of magic object, but you're not going to be able to find out what it is unless you climb up into the back of the cart and do a more thorough investigation. Right now, you're just kind of tiptoeing along behind it with your arm raising up the back of the thing. At any moment, if this guy driving the cart turns around, he'll see you. So your options now are to drop it and safely slink back, or try to climb up into the back of the cart without being noticed. And if you do that, then you're traveling down into the village.
Oh, so it is heading into the village?
Oh, yes.
I really want to do that, but I don't want to be that guy. So I guess he'll slink back to the party and let them.
Okay.
You have my permission to be that guy if you want to.
Do I? You're not going to get upset?
I'm not.
Okay, let's have some fun then. Victor is all about like finding out what the hell's going on. So yeah, he's gonna be like, "Screw this! You guys don't know what you're doing."
So, Evie, you just watch
Oh.
Victor slink up behind the cart and lift up the back of it, and now you see him gently climbing up into the back of the cart.
Thirsty? What were her stealth checks?
Like 32.
And he's got pass without trace. So, like, the cart's not even jostling under his weight as he's climbing up into it.
I mean, this is just Tuesday.
Victor,
I mean,
give me an investigation check.
I would have hoped that he would, put on his telepathy so that
We did, but at the end of the last session we had that. Yeah.
It's if a 20 is not good enough, it'll be a 26.
20 is good enough.
Okay.
You try to find the source of the magic in the cart. And bear with me just 1 second. Up towards the front of the cart. The cart itself doesn't have any sort of top. You can see in the back where they've got two chairs stacked up in such a way that a table is affixed in place. And the guy, quote unquote, driving the cart is just kind of sitting on top of this table. So if you were to reach up with your knuckle and like knock on the wood that you're stumped down underneath, you'd be knocking on the table he's sitting on, more or less. There's a large wooden pallet here. And when you slide it aside, you can see the source of the magic. And what you see are 3 large hammers. With beautiful black lacquered handles. And I'm assuming Victor doesn't know anything about metallurgy or forging or smithing or anything.
He knows about making maps.
Okay. Yeah, the heads of these hammers, when I say hammer, I mean more of a tool than a weapon, more of like a smithing tool than a warhammer.
Would it be possible to slip one out?
Looks really heavy.
So can I like try and weigh it?
I'd make you roll a stealth check at disadvantage to get one of these out the back of the cart without the person driving the cart noticing.
Okay. Minimum 30.
A minimum of 30?
Yeah.
How? How do you figure?
Reliable talent gives me 10. I have a plus 10 to stealth, and then pass without trace is another 10.
Okay. See, this is why I don't like adventures for like level 14 characters. It's no fun for me anymore.
I
I
apologize
could
for
roll
this.
and add my Sonic die and see if we can get over 40.
Victor gets up into the back of the cart, disappears from view. And after a few moments, you see him come back, dragging this hammer. You would need 2 hands to lift this, Victor. What's your strength score?
10.
10? So you're definitely not strong enough to effectively wield this. Whatever work this hammer is for, you're not built for. But you manage to get out the back of the cart, and you hear an audible thump when the head of this hammer hits the ground next to you in the dust. For a moment, your breath just catches in your throat. But the man's sermon is not interrupted, and the cart continues to creak along the path down into the village.
Yeah, Victor will drag the hammer back to Genie and be like, "Hey, I got you a present."
Genie gasps and says, "I knew you cared." Genie has less strength than Victor does, so
That
she is not using this hammer.
that is a very impractical hammer, depending on what you're trying to use it for.
Looking at it, it's a smithing. It's larger than a typical smithing hammer would be, and the head of it is made out of charcoal black metal that escapes visual identification. As you inspect the head of the hammer, though, you can see runic lines following the contours of it. And you can feel transmutation magic emanating from within the metal.
So, Genie has 2 questions for the DM.
Yeah.
One, what does her, because she is trained in metallurgy.
Mhm.
This is the thing. So what does her knowledge of metallurgy tell her about this hammer?
That the head of the hammer, you'd have to get it back into a shop and do some stuff to find out exactly what sort of alloy it is. But to your eyes, it looks like this is a decorative or ornate device. The reason I say that is because the alloy looks like the metal is too soft. It would not stand up to any sort of ironwork, for sure.
But there's
Also-
Yeah.
But
Go
it's
ahead.
also way too heavy.
Yeah, and that's not, you would not want to make a hammer this heavy if you're meant to be working it for a long period of time.
So the second question Genie has is, can you tell me what an identify spell would give me?
You cast Identify on it?
Yes, I do. If people, if we've got time, I'll cast it as a ritual. If not, then I can use a spell slot.
You can take 10 minutes and cast it as a ritual.
I don't think we're under any kind of time crunch
I have
right
a
now.
1 day
Edmont
spell
is-
duration
yeah.
up, so.
Yeah, Edmont's gonna keep watch while she does this.
Okay. So, Edmont, you watch as the pull cart disappears down into the mists. Genie,
Brave men.
the hammer is not meant for metalworking. It's not meant to forge armor or tools or anything. What it can do in a proper ritualistic setting is forge ash into useful building material.
Interesting. That explains why they're digging up ash.
Maybe why they bring furniture. Maybe they burn it and turn it into ash that they use to build other things.
Or they just
Yeah.
need
What would they
furniture for the
build?
houses they're building.
I think
They
we
haven't
need-
been building houses. They've been building. They haven't built anything. Built anything to what we have seen.
just building materials.
They've apparently been building a very large crystal tower.
Well, the crystal tower was quote unquote always there.
Was it? Or is it? Everyone says it was always there, but it actually appeared very recently.
I mean, we have no way of knowing.
Yeah,
that,
do we have a
but-
way of? I don't think
but,
we have.
We have no way of knowing that.
The
Oh, yeah,
lore
it's-
from this
it's a-
region is that this was a haunted area. The villages have been abandoned for decades, and that hordes of the undead roamed here until very recently when they were all burned. Someone came in recently, dealt with the undead problem. That's kind of the rumor that you had heard from, presumably the Vistani would have known more than anyone.
Like the wording on the description I'm getting, is it just building materials?
If you don't have the proper training with this object, but if you did, you would be able to transmute ash into any number of useful materials, you think. It's the kind of thing that would take some practice.
Right, but like, like just building materials, or could this be used to make weapons or armor plates, that kind of thing?
You don't know. It's possible.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
I'll basically remit. Like I think so. At the very minimum, this is building materials, I think, but possibly also used to make various other kinds of devices, such as armor plates or weapons. So we might be running up into a situation where the cultists are armed with magical ash weapons.
We haven't seen them use a lot of weaponry in general. They seem to be a very magically oriented order. Except when they use magic to transmute themselves into basically fire swordsmen, that's kind of different.
Not all of the small folk in any land are significantly magically talented. This may just be for the shock troops.
I suspect what they've been using it to make a lot of glass for their tower, because the Crystal Tower was a religious icon in our world. It's obviously something Chrisen has built as a part of his trying to return to the old days of air.
We don't know.
My understanding of what we've been told is that this was here. Like, it predates us arriving here. At least the small folk seem to think it does. You can't really tell with them.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not something that we can accurately rely on, but we have to proceed with what knowledge we do have.
Okay, so what's next?
First off, I'm going to put this hammer into the bag, so it's not where none of us are carrying it around.
Okay.
Or we could just leave it here. It's up to everybody.
Take it away.
I think the bag makes
Sure,
sense.
it's espresso.
If we can
Leave
figure
it
out how
back.
to use that, there's a lot of things that could be useful for.
Okay.
I definitely think that's a nice find.
I'll just put it in there. Maybe we can get the other two later.
Now,
If you want, I can go back.
Is there anything in the village actually worth investigating, or is it just a trash heap?
It's people shoveling ash around, probably
think-
in preparation for whatever these things are being used for.
Yeah, that makes the shoveling ash thing will make a lot more sense if they can use it to build with.
Mhm.
Agreed.
I think we should go with plan A, which is put the robes on, follow the path, and if anybody stops us, it's a hello fellow cultist situation.
I'm amenable to that.
Ekon.
Mhm.
Eventually, you lead the party down into the village proper, and it's just like I described to Edmont. Workers all over the place. After a few moments, not reported that there was maybe 4 or 5 dozen people in total. Ekon, approaching this direction, this is the path that the parting of the mist follows. North, up and out of the village proper. Most of the activity in the village is centered along the southern edge of it. So these ruined buildings here. And sure enough, it's almost as though nobody's paying you much attention as you enter. You do hear a somewhat heated argument in Darkanese, often the opposite side of the village over towards the well. And more people seem to be congregating in that area. You can also see the pool cart that Victor recently stole from, pulled up in that area of the village as well.
Edmont eavesdrops on this conversation.
You have to get closer to do that. Is that what you're crossing the
Yeah.
village and doing? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the driver of this pool cart is being admonished because he was supposed to have delivered 3 hammers and only 2 are here. And the guy has no explanation for why. He's trying to stammer out excuses, and meanwhile, some of the 4 guys who are pulling the cart in are still kind of lashed to it. They're kind of hunched on the ground in front of the cart, taking a well-deserved rest, but none of them look like they're enjoying this argument very much.
All
Bound to the cart?
speaking poorly learned old Aetherine.
In Darkanese.
No, they're speaking
Oh.
Darkanese now.
It was the sermon was the only thing that was in poor old Aetherine.
Correct.
Are these guys bound to the cart?
They were bound in as much as like a beast of burden would have been.
I mean, were these
To-
slaves, or are these just guys who are pulling a cart?
You're going to ask them?
No. what does it look like?
Didn't look like they had much choice in the matter. Either they're slaves or they woke up this morning and were told, hey, your job today is to pull this cart.
Okay.
The gist you get from the argument, though, is that the driver and his team are being held accountable for this missing item, and they're going to be taken into custody and sent down to the fair house.
That doesn't sound good.
What's a
That
fair house?
doesn't look good. The men exchange glances, and the driver starts putting up a very abridged resistance, but resignation shortly follows. And the 5 men are led away to the structure towards the south end of the village.
Victor will kind of meander over towards that structure.
Well, let's go ahead and get some daytime actions if you guys are going to wander around and start poking at this village and finding out what makes it tick. So, Victor, you want to head down towards the fair house?
Yep.
I thought we were going to follow the path. What's going on?
Well, Victor's gonna go free these people.
Victor, they're cultists. It's fine.
Are you having this conversation in the middle of the village?
Oh,
Ekon,
In
what
the
is your intention for today?
Ekon's going to scout out the route that the mist is leading him in to the edge of the village.
I'll go with him.
Okay, so Ekon and Genie.
I was gonna go with him, but okay.
You can if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is Evie
You're
doing?
you're not liable to get a worse stealth result than me.
Yeah, I guess I have to stay in the village and babysit Victor.
You're going to go down with Victor?
I'm not gonna like poke. I'm gonna be nearby.
So
Like, I'm there, but if Victor's gonna be talking, I'm not necessarily gonna be there with him also talking. I'm gonna be observing.
okay.
And if Victor starts causing trouble or trouble happens to him, I can help him get out. Because Victor has a tendency, I'm just saying, to cause a little bit of mischief.
Okay. Those of you heading up along the path, looking into this structure here, again, these are ruined buildings. They don't have roofs. The walls are crumbled in many places. Pretty much just a blocked off foundation, more or less. However, inside here, you see rows and rows of wooden bunks. Off to your right, in this structure here, this is the only one you don't see any people inside or working at. But there are a lot of what looks like provisions on pallets and under cloths or in sacks. It's also the only place you see what might be a new or modern construction. In the center of this structure as you go by, let's not use black. Black's not very visible on this map. Let's use green. Green is fine.
Green is also not very visible.
Don't sass me, woman. There's a circular structure set into the foundation of what once was a building. And it's fashioned out of stones and metal, and in the center of it is a large pit that maybe a foot or so across that looks like a large cylindrical object could be slotted into.
Okay.
Heading up this path, after a few moments, you are blocked by 3 red-robed individuals. Ekon, looking down, you can see the path in between the mists swirls down this hilly area, down some elevation. You still cannot see the tower from where you are. These 3 men step in front of your path.
What are they doing?
Right now, they're just stepping in front of you.
Okay.
They step in out of the mists. They were hidden to the side of the road, much like you guys were an hour ago. Continuing their direction, one of them steps forth, holds up a hand. The Haethar is not expecting visitors today.
Oh, we must have gotten the wrong missive then, because we were told to be expected tomorrow.
Were you not given labors for today?
Head to the tower and then await the audience tomorrow. camp out there. I think there's some extra work, and I'll look towards Jeannie that we were supposed to do once we got there.
Jeannie will
Until tomorrow.
nod, but otherwise stay silent. She'll keep her eyes downcast.
Are any of you carrying a pack openly?
Edmont is.
Yeah.
Then yeah, one of them nods towards Edmont's pack. You there. Come forward. Show us the parcels.
Edmont steps forward. Opens his pack. There's absolutely not much in the way of anything that would be considered parcels. There's painter supplies, there's dice, there's a tobacco pouch and a pipe, there's water skins, that kind of thing.
And yeah, these guys are starting to get angry at you for wasting their time.
Beg your pardon?
It's all right. I've seen enough. What are your names?
Latin.
My name is I blanked on female names. Sorry.
Adriana.
My name is just like Vivian. I don't know.
Edmont, do you give a fake name?
Yes. I had one and then it vanished.
Names are hard.
I am also Vivian.
Oh, I'm Vivian.
Hilda.
Do you give a fake name?
I do.
Okay. Saul, what is Edmont's fake name?
Smith.
All right, look.
Wolfgang.
I just gave all of you the opportunity, and none of you said Stoltenheim Reinbach the Fourth.
I mean, for growth.
You, three of you are instructed that you're on push-pull duty until further notice. As one of them brusquely shoves the stuff back into Edmont's pack, hands it back to you.
Back over my shoulder.
But it becomes clear that if you want to continue following the path, you're going to have to push through these guys.
People like
Wait, do I have an idea of what the duty they actually want us to do? Would we go back along that path to do that? Is that my impression?
You'd be going back into the village to do that.
Yeah, let's go. I'll lead the group back into the village then.
Yeah, I'll
mean-
head back that way.
It doesn't sound like the kind of standard duty that would be done, but even the few moments you spent in the village, these poor bastards pulling up piles of ash with these large push poles, that seems to be what you've been relegated to.
At least it's not pulling the cart. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, same.
Is that what the three of you are doing now?
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll look in this supply area and see if there's any additional push.
Yeah, with very little difficulty, the three of you managed to each get a hold. And it's just, you can picture like a large wooden push broom, except instead of bristles along the end, it's got like almost like a snow shovel kind of design.
Yeah.
And you can shove, it's not quite as satisfying as, I've never shoveled snow, I wouldn't know.
I have.
I'm envisioning like the Eastern Gardens where you like the trails through the sand.
That's with the rake, though.
It's very meditational.
So did the three of you just fall in doing this work? Keeping your eyes and ears open?
Oh no, I was hoping to, once we're out of sight, like basically rejoin the rest of the group and find a way out and around to where we think that trail is leading.
Okay.